Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of 100 Yards Football and Sports Talk Radio. I'm your host and producer, Logan Landers, here with your Big 12 weekly roundup and, of course, looking ahead to some game previews this upcoming weekend. If you enjoy the video, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. We go live here on the channel each and every single week. Check us out Facebook and YouTube, main two platforms. You can watch the videos here, or if you just want to listen to some audio versions of all of our shows, go download our podcast at 100 Yards of Football on all major podcast streaming platforms. That is thanks in part to the folks over at the Believe Podcast Network. So without further ado, let's get into it here. Our weekly roundup of games here. Up first on the program, talking about the Baylor Bears going on the road, taking on the Arizona Wildcats. Now, coming into this ball game, Baylor, they are currently at 5-5 on the season, 3-4 in Big 12 action. Compare that to the Arizona Wildcats, who are 7-3 overall, 4-3 overall in the Big 12. And this one's going to be an offensive showcase, I believe. You got Sam Robertson doing great work on the season. Sawyer Robinson doing great work on the season. 259 for 424, 29 touchdowns, 9 INTs, 3,210 passing yards compared to Noah Fafita, who we've talked about here on the channel before. 205 for 316 in terms of completions and attempts. 24 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions. He's thrown for 2,494 yards. So I think it's going to be a good matchup here. I expect kind of a higher scoring performance from both these teams here. If you're a defensive fan at home, might want to turn away from this one, but I expect a lot of firepower in this game between two. For Baylor, they're looking to just kind of keep alive and stay above 500, maybe become bowl eligible if all things kind of fall into place. And for Arizona, they're still scratching, they're still clawing. To try and once again do more of the same. 7-3 on the year, so they've had a solid season. Once again, 1:00 kick for this one. But for my prediction, I'm going to go with the Arizona Wildcats in this matchup. I think that Baylor's going to put up a good test, but I think that Arizona, who's currently on a 3-game winning streak, they put up some good performances against Cincinnati. We saw in their most recent matchup, 30-24 win on that one. They beat Kansas, they beat Colorado, so they are looking good right now. And in all the games, pretty much all the games they've played this year against ranked opponents, which obviously is their toughest opponents, toughest competitors, lost by Baylor to 6 points there, and only lost by about 20 to Iowa State in their worst loss of the season. But for Baylor, like I said, if the defense come to play, I think they have a chance, but I am going to roll with the Arizona Wildcats in this one. Final score, I'll go high scoring. Let's go with Arizona putting up 35. And as for the Baylor Bears, let's go 21. So I think Arizona is a better program at this point in time, but I expect Baylor to put up a solid fight this upcoming weekend out there in Arizona, taking on the Wildcats. All right, second game we have here, moving to the 4:00 kicks on this one. We're talking about Kansas State with the Wildcats going on the road and battling out in Salt Lake City, the Utah Utes. Now, Utah, they have been on a magical run this year. My partner, Brandon Larson, obviously a big fan of him, wasn't able to make it this week, unfortunately. But Utah has just been on a tear in recent weeks, and they have looked sharp. Like I said, currently number 12, so they are looking nice and pretty to hopefully stay and contend for a potential college playoff national championship if all things go away, go according to the way Brandon wants, as well as the rest of the Utah fan base. Now, looking at this game here, we'll just start off with Utah. They're currently, like I said, 8-2 on the year, winners of 3 in a row, and they have just put up some good performances pretty much all season. Devin Dampier, good work behind center, 17 touchdowns, only 5 picks. Just over 1,600 yards on the season. Compare that to Johnson over there, Avery Johnson in Kansas State, who has had a good year, over 2,000 passing yards for him, 17 touchdowns, 5 INTs. So if the Utes defense is up to task, if they can take on, the likes of Johnson, the quarterback, and also Jackson, their running back, I think that they won't have an issue with it. As we know, Brown, top receiver, 710 receiving yards for him. So if you're out there in Utah, if you're a cornerback, if you're a linebacker, just keep an eye on him. He's going to be their top target. But for Utah, I have really, it's hard for me to pick against them with everything that's gone right for them this season and how they've been able to handle opponents. I think that Utah is getting hot at the right time. You hope it can continue for a couple of more weeks here as we round out the program, round out the rest of this 2025 campaign. But they are heavy favorites in this one. and I expect that to continue. So for me, I'm going to have to go with the Utah Utes getting the big win in this one. I'll go final score for this one. Let's go a little bit lower scoring, but I'm going to go 28-17 in favor of Utah and the Utes this weekend, continuing their winning streak and improving to 9-2 on the season. Once again, 4 o'clock kick out there in Rice-Eccles. All right, third game we have here on the program, talking about the Horned Frogs, TCU, taking on Houston here with the Cougars. And coming into this matchup, this is going to be a good one here. I think it's Houston currently ranked number 23. This is going to be, once again, in Houston. So home game for the Cougars this season, taking on TCU. And looking at these two teams, TCU comes into this game a solid 6-4 campaign so far, hoping to improve to 7-4. And for Houston, they are at 8-2, similar to what we just talked about with Utah. Same record there in terms of overall. But I think that this is going to be a solid matchup here. This is an even battle in a lot of aspects. I've seen a lot of people kind of split between who they think is going to win, if they're going to be an upset with TCU, or if Houston can continue their dominance and continue their successful season. Now, looking at this matchup, I think that, when you look at the quarterback battles, you have to give Hoover the advantage out there for TCU. Compare that to Wegman for Houston, who's had a good season, don't get me wrong. But just in terms of the sheer numbers alone, you look at Hoover, who's gotten you 23 touchdowns. He's gotten you 10 INTs, so he does have a bit of an asterisk on that. But he's thrown for 2,800 plus yards on the year. Meanwhile, compare that to Connor Wegman. Once again, really good season for him, over 2,100 yards. And looking at the rest of his campaign, he's got, in terms of interceptions, he has currently got 7 and 18 touchdowns for him. So Hoover with the advantage there slightly. I will say, when you look at the running back game, you got to give Connors the edge, I would say, over Kevion Barnes. 443 for Barnes in terms of rushing yards compared to Connors with 725. So we know the Houston Cougars like that kind of balanced approach there. McAllister. Look, he's one of the best receivers in the nation right now. 52 catches for him, 941 yards. Closing in, he's probably going to get over 1,000 on the year in this ball game. 8 touchdowns, which is phenomenal. But do not shine any light too bright on McAllister. Move it some over to Amari Thomas. Great year for him as well. 737 receiving yards, 45 catches for 8 touchdowns. Now, this is going to be, I enjoy this matchup. Of course, Walls, as we know, best guy on defense in terms of sack numbers for Houston. And Elarms Orr has 4, so just a slight difference in their top sack leaders in this matchup. But for this 4 o'clock kick in Houston, obviously, like I said, 2 Texas-based teams, so this is always going to have a little bit of an extra flair to it. But I might have to roll with the upset in this one. I might have to go with the TCU Horned Frogs pulling off the win, and I'm going to keep it a close matchup. But I do think the Horned Frogs have what it takes to be kind of my upset pick for this week. So I think the Kansas State, I think that TCU, I think that they have a good chance of winning. And I think that overall final score, let's go with 24-21 in favor of TCU. Maybe a last-minute field goal can kind of seal the deal for them, or a late touchdown. But I think TCU could be my upset this week, so I'm going to roll with them in a close one over Houston. All right, and as you see here, final game on the program, 8 o'clock kick. We're going to be rolling with the BYU Cougars taking on the Cincinnati Bearcats. This one's going to be out there in Cincy. Coming into this matchup, BYU ranked number 11 in the nation, currently 9-1 on the year, a 6-1 record in Big 12 play. Compare that to Cincinnati, who is now at 7-3 overall this season and 5-2 in play in the Big 12 conference. Now, coming into this matchup, a lot of people are going to be favoring BYU, and rightfully so. Look at what they've done this year. Look at all the big wins they have. Look at the playmakers that they have on both offense and defense. Of course, Beer Bachmeier, quarterback, over 2,100 passing yards this season, 13 touchdowns, 4 INTs. You got LJ Martin, 912 yards on the ground for him. Chase Roberts, 702 receiving yards. We know all the familiar faces, right? Kelly in the back there, 7 sacks on the year. So we know what they're about. And, of course, we know Cincinnati got Sorsby, who's had a good year overall. 22 touchdowns for him, over 2,200 passing yards, only 4 INTs, so you love to see that. Walker's had a productive year as well. Allen, the receiving core, 10 touchdowns for him. So if you're BYU, if you can stop him, if you can stop Sorsby, you have a good chance, I think, of winning this ball game. And look, BYU, they are just red hot right now. They have been battle tested, and other than just one blemish on the record coming, of course, to Texas Tech, who is a top team in the nation, as we've seen all season. they look great. They beat TCU in dominant fashion the week prior in their most recent matchup, I should say, 44-13 in that one. But then, when you look at, overall in the season, they were on that impressive win streak, got snapped, but you're hoping to build at least a 3-game win streak here to end the year on a high note and continue into the playoffs. And comp that with Cincinnati, they've had a good season overall, right? A few tough losses, as we know. You lost your season opener to Nebraska. You got blown out by Utah a few weeks ago. And then we know the tough loss, as we just mentioned, Arizona 30-24. Like I said, a couple of differences in that game, and Cincinnati, the Bearcats, could have won that ball game. So I think this is going to be a tough matchup, but I am going to have to go with the BYU Cougars this year in this matchup, getting the win. They've looked dominant pretty much all season long. They've been battle-tested. They've had some good matchups against good quality opponents. And for the most part, they've been up to task for it. So I'm going to BYU with this one. I'm going to put a little bit more of a wider margin in terms of victory, but I'm going to go with 33 for the Cougars. And for the Cincinnati Bearcats, let's go with 17 as my final score. So those are all of my picks for this upcoming week in Big 12 action as we get closer and closer to ending the season. But I want to hear from you in our comments section. Once again, on Facebook or YouTube, whichever one you prefer. And also, once again, go download our podcast available each and every single week here on the channel. And this has been the Big 12 Weekly Recap, talking about games of the past and also the ones this upcoming weekend. The games we've talked about today, BYU and Cincinnati, 8 o'clock kick. TCU and Houston, a battle of Texas-based teams there, 4 o'clock kick on that one. Another 4 o'clock kick in a good matchup here in Kansas State taking on the Utah Utes. And, of course, the one that will start all off this upcoming weekend, the Baylor Bears going up against the Arizona Wildcats. So once again, I've been your host and producer, Logan Landers, on the Big 12 Weekly Roundup and Game Preview Show. Enjoy the weekend. Be safe. Watch some football, and we'll see you